A new housing bill just passed the Senate. And if you rent, want to buy a home, or have family struggling with housing costs, this is one of those updates you do not want to misunderstand. The bill includes changes tied to building more homes, limiting large investors from buying more single-family houses, and changing how some affordable housing projects are financed. But the key point is this: some parts of this could help over time, while other parts may not lower your rent, your mortgage payment, or your home search costs right away. And that is where people can get caught off guard. One rule can sound like relief is coming, but another part of the housing market, like local zoning, construction delays, mortgage rates, or investor activity in your area, can still keep costs high. So if you assume prices are about to drop immediately, you could make a rushed decision, delay a move for the wrong reason, or miss what is actually changing in your local market. Before we get into the details, let me know in the comments what feels harder in your area right now: buying a home, paying rent, or finding anything available at a reasonable price. That one question says a lot about how different the housing problem can feel depending on where you live. Now, the bill is called the 21st Century Road to Housing Act, and the reason it got so much attention is that it brought together lawmakers who usually disagree on almost everything. It was negotiated by Republican Senator Tim Scott and Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren in the Senate, with key work also coming from House lawmakers French Hill and Maxine Waters. Housing affordability has become one of those issues where the pain is showing up everywhere, from renters facing lease renewals, to first-time buyers comparing mortgage payments, to older homeowners watching their children or grandchildren get priced out. The basic problem is simple to describe, but very hard to fix. America does not have enough homes for the number of people who need homes. The materials cited by lawmakers point to a shortage of roughly 10 million homes nationwide, and when supply is short, prices get pushed higher. That does not mean every city has the same problem, or that one group caused all of this. But when too many households are chasing too few homes, the market can feel like a crowded auction where ordinary families compete with each other. And you can see the pressure in the numbers. Senator Warren pointed out that the average American home sold for about $150,000 in 1990, while today the average price is above $500,000. Rents have also stayed more than 17% higher than before the pandemic, even with some recent cooling. So for a household trying to plan ahead, the problem is not just that housing is expensive, it is that housing costs have moved faster than many paychecks, savings accounts, and fixed incomes. So then, what would this bill actually try to do? One major goal is to make it easier to build more housing. Supporters argue that permitting delays, zoning restrictions, environmental reviews, and local rules can add months or years to a project, and those delays raise costs before anyone even moves in. The bill would streamline some review requirements, reward local governments that increase housing supply, and encourage the reuse of vacant properties and abandoned infrastructure. A simple way to think about it is that lawmakers are trying to widen a narrow road. If more homes can move through the process, the hope is that pressure eventually eases. This is also where the administration's view comes in. President Trump has signaled support for the legislation, and the White House framed it as part of a broader housing affordability agenda focused on expanding supply and limiting large-scale investor purchases. Supporters on that side of the debate often argue that the federal government should help remove barriers that make housing harder to build, rather than only creating new spending programs. In plain terms, their argument is that you cannot solve a shortage without more supply. But Democrats pushed hard on another part of the problem: the role of large investors in single-family homes. After the 2008 financial crisis, big investment firms bought large numbers of houses in some markets, often turning them into rentals. Critics say that when firms with deep pockets compete against families looking for a starter home, it can reduce available inventory and push prices higher. Warren called it historic that private equity would be blocked from buying up more single-family homes and turning housing into another Wall Street investment. The final version, though, is a compromise. Earlier proposals would have required some large investors to sell certain newly built homes within 7 years. House Republicans objected, saying that could discourage investment in new housing and make the supply problem worse. So the final approach restricts companies that already own more than 350 single-family homes from buying additional properties. For a regular buyer, the hope is that this reduces competition from large firms, but the effect would likely be gradual and may vary by market. Also, the bill includes changes aimed at affordable housing financing. Banks would be allowed to invest more heavily in affordable housing projects. Limits would rise for public housing units that can be rehabilitated through Section 8 financing, and federal support for manufactured housing would expand. Manufactured homes matter because they can be one of the lower cost paths to homeownership, especially for people priced out of traditional houses. The final compromise also authorizes disaster recovery block grants for 3 years, which could matter in areas trying to rebuild after fires, floods, hurricanes, or storms. Now, the practical thing to keep in mind is that this bill would not act like a light switch. If you're renewing a lease next month or trying to buy a home this summer, you should not assume this suddenly lowers your rent or mortgage payment. Construction takes time, local governments have to participate, and builders still have to deal with financing, labor, land, materials, and interest rates. So the realistic promise here is not immediate relief, it is a possible change in the direction of housing policy. And that is also where the criticism comes in. Some opponents argue that housing is mostly a local issue and that Congress should focus more on deficits, interest rates, and broader economic conditions. Others say the bill does not go far enough on permitting reform because it creates targeted exemptions instead of tackling the deeper rules that slow down development. Housing advocates may still argue that the country needs more direct help for renters, more deeply affordable housing, or stronger protections against displacement. A bill can be meaningful and still not be enough. For your own finances, the takeaway is to watch the local impact, not just the national headline. If your city or county starts applying for housing grants, changing zoning rules, speeding up permits, or converting vacant land into housing, that could matter more for your real life than the vote total in Washington. If you're a renter, keep watching local rent trends and renewal notices. If you're trying to buy, pay attention to inventory, investor activity, mortgage rates, and whether more starter homes are actually being built. And if you live on a fixed income, the key issue is whether new supply includes housing that ordinary people can afford, not just expensive units with a different label. The way to view this is that the Senate has taken a significant step, but not a magic one. The bill tries to address several parts of the housing problem at once: more construction, fewer barriers, better financing, limits on large investors, and more support for certain affordable housing options. If it moves forward and is implemented well, the benefit may show up slowly through more supply and less pressure in certain markets. But for now, keep your expectations grounded, keep watching what happens locally, and remember that housing affordability is not solved by one vote. It is solved by years of decisions that finally start adding up.